In 2017, you said the Third World War will be a war with or about AI. Now we have a very conventional war. Can AI help?
One of the reasons for World War III would be if one country has, or one place has advanced AI technology and the other powers want it, or they're worried about some country gaining advanced AI that would give them a strong advantage in war, then they may be tempted to attack before the country that is developing the strong AI has that for use in weapons technology.
Russia said that they are going to stop the delivery of rocket engines. Is that for SpaceX a threat or an opportunity?
SpaceX, we design and manufacture our own rocket engines, so we do not rely on any Russian components at all. This will
And
affect...
for the United States of America, it is dangerous, or?
Well, the Boeing and Lockheed have historically relied on the Russian RD-180 engine, which I should say, to be fair, is a great engine. They are hoping to move away from that in the future with engines from Blue Origin, but those engines are not yet ready for flight. There is also the Antares vehicle, which uses the RD-181, I believe. They will not be able to fly as a result.
With all your knowledge and products, services, you're almost a strategic weapon in modern warfare. How do you see your role in that context? Ukraine shows that there are opportunities, that you're needed.
I certainly hope that SpaceX and Tesla are not forced to develop any kind of weapons technology. Obviously, we would only do such a thing if it was the last resort.
I mean it more in the metaphorical sense, not that you produce weapons, but that your knowledge can be used in order to make a difference in conventional warfare or in the warfare of the future, which is AI.
I think I can be helpful in, I try to take the set of actions that are most likely to improve the probability that the future will be good. And so, obviously, sometimes I make mistakes in this regard, so it's not like I always get it right, but I aspire to get it right. And so, whatever I think is most likely to ensure that the future is good for all of humanity, those the actions that I will take, yeah.
A couple of months ago, we had an exchange about Junger's famous
great book,
Storm of Steel.
Yep.
You were very fascinated by that book, which has been published roughly 100 years ago, about Junger's experiences in the First World War. Why is that book so important for you?
I read a lot of books, and for some reason I'm fascinated by war and history in general. I thought Junger's book was an excellent first-hand account of World War I, and it's certainly, I think, a lesson taken from that book is we don't ever want to do that again. That's
interesting that you're, that's good. That's good that you're saying that, because there's a big controversy around that book, and some people are saying this is glorifying war.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
And other people are saying it is a war for not having a war ever again. So you're clearly in the second camp.
I think those who don't like Junger's book are basically just because it's not 100% anti-war in the most extreme way, then therefore it's bad.
No, it's like a report. It's just neither
he's just saying
positive
this is what happened
nor
to
negative. It's just describing what happened in a terrible way.
Yeah, nobody's reading that book and say, I want to do that. I want to do that. It makes it very clear. It's a very terrible situation. But he also said it's not like there's no good that comes out of even a terrible situation. There's some good that comes out of it, but it's overwhelmingly bad. It's just really interesting to I think, read about history, learn the lessons of history, such that we do not repeat mistakes of the past.
We know that saying, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And we see a rhyme these days. Back to the bigger strategic picture, the terrible actions of Putin are to a certain degree also a result of strategic mistakes that Europe, particularly Germany, has made. The dropout of nuclear energy.
Actually, can I just say, I think it's very important that Germany not shut down its nuclear power stations. I think this is extremely...
I just wanted to ask a question on that, because if we really want to reduce Putin's power and Europeans and Germany's dependence on Russian energy, this works only through decarbonization. So my question to you is, should we have even more nuclear energy in order to get faster independent from Putin and to resolve the climate issues?
I want to be super clear. In my opinion, Germany should not only not shut down the nuclear power plants, it should reopen the ones that shut. Those are the fastest ones to restart. It's crazy to shut down nuclear power plants. Now, especially like if you're in a place where there's not natural disasters. So if you're maybe somewhere where there's severe earthquakes or tsunamis or something like that. It's more, of a question mark as to maybe, but there's not massive natural disaster risk, which Germany does not have, then there's really no danger with the nuclear power plants.
And you don't see any safer alternatives that could have a similar effect? So solar and wind is not going to do it. Do you have any other ideas in mind about future energy policy?
I think long term, most of civilization's energy is going to come from, and then you need to store it with a battery, because obviously the sun only shines during the day and sometimes it's very cloudy. So you need solar batteries will be the main long-term way that civilization is powered. But between now and then, we need to maintain nuclear. I can't emphasize enough, please do not shut down the nuclear power plants, and please reopen the ones that have been shut. This is total madness to shut them down. I want to be clear. Total madness.
Let's see whether your very clear words are heard in Europe and have consequences in Germany.
I'm trying to use the strongest words.
Yeah.
I would say this is a national security risk. It's not, listen, playtime is over, okay? Obviously, playtime is over. This is it's a national security risk to shut these things down.
It's another bitter lesson of that war. It is not only an issue with regard to climate, it is very much an issue to national security.
And it's a climate issue for replacing. I think people don't understand coal power plants, because of their emissions, they cause a certain number of deaths every year, far more dangerous than nuclear power plants.
Do you have any other, let's say, unconventional ideas to deal with the challenge of climate change? Is it possible through the reduction of consumption and through new forms of energy to resolve it completely without China being completely aligned? Or should we have a different way to look at it? Some people are saying perhaps instead of just trying to avoid a warmer climate, we should focus on how to live with a warmer climate and adapt to that. Is that an option?
I think we just want to take the set of actions that accelerate the transition to a sustainable energy economy. And that sustainable energy economy is going to be, like I said, primarily solar with wind. You absolutely need stationary storage batteries because of the intermittency of solar and wind. And then there will also be hydroelectric, geothermal, nuclear. These are all fine. And but we want to just move as quickly as we can to a sort of a solar electric economy. And sometimes people say, oh, it's cloudy or something. What about solar? And do plants grow? They're a solar powered chemical reaction. If plants grow, you have solar power. Obviously. How do you think they grow? I think we just want to try to move there as quickly as possible. And I do want to emphasize that while I think solar will be the main source of energy, it won't be everything. It will, like I said, there'll be nuclear, hydroelectric, geothermal, wind, and the faster we get, the better for the world. We're running this climate experiment, but it's an experiment where we know that's pointless, because we know ultimately we will run out of coal and oil and gas. It's not going to last forever. And we have to transition to something that is long-term in any case, because we will run out of hydrocarbons to burn. So then let's just not run the experiment. But I'm much less of a climate alarmist than people might think. Although, of course, my words are taken, sometimes always amplified. But
how is it going to look like in 15 years? Better than today? Much better than today?
Oh, from a sustainable energy standpoint, much better. Yeah, much.
So your bet is we are going to solve the climate issue?
Yes, absolutely. We will solve the climate issue. It's just a question of when. And I'd say like the fundamental good of Tesla should be thought of as, by how many years did Tesla accelerate the sustainable energy revolution? That's the fundamental historic good of Tesla. Not whether it would occur anyway, but by how many years can Tesla accelerate that transition?
You once told me about population that the decrease of reproduction rate, birth rate, is one of the most underestimated problems of our times.
Yes.
Can you explain?
Yeah, so most people in the world are operating under the false impression that there are too many people. This is not true. Earth could maintain a population many times the current level. And the birth rate has been dropping like crazy. So unfortunately, like, we have these ridiculous population estimates from the UN that need to be updated because they just don't make any sense. Really, you can just look at, say, what was the birth rate last year, how many kids were born, multiply that by the life expectancy, and say, okay, that's how many people will be alive in the future. And then say, is the trend for birth rate positive or negative? It's negative. So that's the best case, unless something changes with the birth rate. You can take Japan, for example. I think, I'm just going off memory here, but I think the population is roughly, but last year, if you take the number of children born times the life expectancy, which is 85 years, it's very impressive life expectancy, then Japan would have, I think, around 68 million people roughly half of the current population. That does not tell the full story, because those that you would have an upside down demographic pyramid. You already have an upside down demographic pyramid where, a lot of old people, very few young people. And how is this, that upside down demographic pyramid is unstable.
Let's also hear why we'll need alternatives. You have recently presented Optimus,
Oh, yes.
human robot, and you shared great expectations what that could do for the world.
Yeah.
Could you explain a little bit your motivation? I assume it's not only about the first visit to Mars that could be done by Optimus. It is more than that, a game changer in AI. Could you share a little bit your vision?
Yeah. With respect to AI and robotics, I always approach these things with some trepidation, because I certainly do not want to play a hand in anything that could potentially be harmful to humanity. Now, humanoid robots, they're clearly happening. I mean, you look at Boston Dynamics, their demonstrations are better every year. So there will be humanoid robots. The rate of advancement of AI is very rapid. Even if Tesla stopped doing AI, I think we're still on a track to develop artificial general intelligence, meaning intelligence smarter than the smartest human.
Concretely, Optimus is going to be used in Tesla factories. That's one of the use cases. But what is the broader use case beyond Tesla?
Yeah, Optimus is a general purpose work. The initial roles for Optimus would be in work that is repetitive, boring, dangerous, that kind of thing. Basically work that people don't want to do unless they're paid to do it.
Why has Optimus 2 legs? Just because it looks like a human being, or is it more practical? I thought 4 legs are better.
4 legs good, 2 legs bad. That reminds me of Orwell. Humanity has designed the world to interact with a bipedal humanoid with 2 arms and 10 fingers. So if you want to have a robot fit in and be able to do things that humans can do, it must be of roughly the same size and shape and capability.
The prototype is going to be ready by the end of this year. When is it a product that can be mass marketed?
Mass produced, that's the hard part. I don't know, I think we'll have something pretty good at the prototype level this year, and it might be ready for at least a moderate volume production towards the end of next year.
Do you think that Optimus is going to play a role in our daily life, helping us in the household and things like that?
I think it probably would, yeah. I think so. It's, like I said, general purpose humanoid, yeah, so.
You said the potential is bigger than the potential of Tesla. If that's true, then
For cars, yeah.
Then it must be really a mass market product.
Yeah,
of our daily life.
yeah, sure. So what is an economy? People get confused. Sometimes they think an economy is money. Money is a database for exchange of goods and services, and for time shifting the exchange of goods and services. Money is a database. Money doesn't have power in and of itself. Like, you can run the thought experiment of you're trapped on a remote island, shipwrecked on an island, and you've got $1 trillion in a Swiss bank account. It's worthless. You'd rather have a can of soup. So, you have all the Bitcoin in the world, and you're still going to starve. Actual economy is goods and services. So then what limits the output of goods and services? That limiter is, even capital is distilled labor. So the limiting factor for the economy is labor. And so if you address the limiting factor for the economy, then it's not clear that an economy in the traditional sense has any meaning anymore, because you have no constraint on goods and services. The only things that will be missing are things that have artificial scarcity. So that where we decide to make it scarce, a particular piece of art or a particular home in this exact location or something like that. But there will be no shortage of goods and services.
But in a way, Optimus is also an answer to the problem of a drop in birth rates. If we have not enough human people, more bots.
For Optimus,
to get the work done.
Optimus will be helpful with respect to dropping birth rates. But like I said, you have to say, if these things continue, then what happens? Humanity dies out? Is that what we want?
Or step by step replaced by artificial intelligence, human beings that Neuralink is empowering.
Yeah, Neuralink, in the short term, Neuralink is just about solving brain injuries and spinal injuries and that kind of thing. To be clear, for many years, Neuralink's products will just be helpful to someone who has lost the use of their arms and legs, or who has just a traumatic brain injury of some kind. That's what Neural will be useful for many years.
But in our last
Long-term,
conversation, you said that Neuralink is among all your projects for you the most important one. Is that still true?
I know I said it could be. I wouldn't say for sure it is the most important, but it could be the most important in that there is a long-term mitigation to artificial intelligence, which is that we could effectively merge with artificial intelligence by improving the speed of interaction between our cortex and our tertiary layer, which is already silicon. We're already a sort of a 3-level intelligence creature. The base level is the limbic system, the sort of animal brain or reptile brain, essentially, the sort of fundamental, the animal or reptile brain. And then there's the cortex, which the cortex, by the way, is largely in service to the reptile brain.
Could you imagine that one day we would be able to download our human brain capacity into a Optimus?
Yes. I think that is, I'm not saying this is, it is possible, I think, to do that. It is possible.
Which would be a different way of eternal life, because we would also download our personalities into a body.
Yes, we could download the things that we believe make ourselves unique. Now, of course, if you're not in a body anymore, there's definitely going to be some difference there. As far as preserving our memories, personality, if you will, I think we could do that.
The moment of singularity that Ray Kurzweil has, I think, predicted for 25 is approaching fast. Do you think the timeline is still realistic?
I see this as not, I'm not sure this is a singularity, meaning I'm not sure this is very sharp, but already there's so much compute that we outsource. Our memories are stored in our phones and computers with the pictures and video. Computers and phones amplify our ability to communicate, enabling us to do things that would have been considered magical and had you burned at the stake in maybe 300 years ago. And you can have two people to have a video call basically for free from two parts of the world, on opposite sides of the world. It's amazing. So we've already amplified our sort of human brains massively with computers. And I think an interesting ratio to roughly calculate would be the amount of compute that is digital divided by the amount of compute that is biological. And how does that ratio change over time? And with there's so much digital compute happening so fast, that ratio increasing rapidly.
Talking about speed, you have the vision that one day Starship could be able to get from A to B in 30 minutes all around the globe. Is that correct? And if so, what would the time frame for this vision? It's like a global super taxi. You can just go from San Francisco to Nairobi.
Yeah, the landing will be loud. So you'd want to probably be connecting cities that are next to oceans or seas, such that you can land maybe, I don't know, far enough offshore that landing noise is not disturbing to people.
But coast to coast, that would be a realistic option.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like an ICBM, but change the option package from nuclear to landing. Delete the nuke, add landing.
Elon, you have solved so many problems of mankind and presented so many solutions. I'm surprised that one topic seems not to be too fascinating for you, and that is the project of longevity and increased lifespan significantly. Why are you not passionate about that? You're not personally interested in living longer?
I don't think we should try to have people live for a very long time. That it would cause ossification of society, because the truth is most people don't change their mind, they just die. And so if they don't die, they will be stuck with old ideas, and society won't advance. I think we already have quite a serious issue with the gerontocracy, where the leaders of so many countries are extremely old. Look, in the US, it's a very ancient leadership. And it's just impossible to stay in touch with the people if you're like many generations older than them. And the founders in the US, they put minimum ages for political office, but they did not put maximum ages, because they did not expect that people would be living so long. But they should have, because you really want, in order for a democracy to function well, the leaders must be reasonably in touch with the bulk of the population. And if you're too young or too old, you can't say that you would be in touch.
Is there a kind of ideal age, and how old would you like to get?
I think for political leadership, I think you want to be, I don't know, ideally within 10 or at least 20 years of the average age of the population. This doesn't sound too crazy. For me, I don't know, I certainly would like to maintain health for a longer period of time, but I'm not afraid of dying. I think it will come as a relief.
Although you may not be able to see the vision of SpaceX come true in your life.
I'd like to live long enough to see that.
Being at a net worth of 230 billion, roughly, being perceived as the richest person on Earth.
I think Putin is significantly richer than me.
You really do, yeah?
Yeah, I can't go invade countries and stuff. I believe there's like some old quote that from, was it Crassus? Or that you're not really rich unless you can afford a legion.
Do you know John Law?
I don't know.
John Law used to be the richest person on Earth 300 years ago.
Okay.
He was a poker player, a gambler, homme de femme. He was the biggest art collector on Earth, so a lot of superlatives.
Wow.
In the end, he went bankrupt.
What? That's a pretty far to fall.
Did you ever thought about that option, that something could go wrong and that you could one day lose everything?
There's been many times where I expected to lose everything. Not who starts a car company and a rocket company expecting them to succeed? Certainly not me. I thought they both had less than a 10% chance of success. And frankly, I wasn't wrong in that in 2008, we had the third failure of SpaceX, and if the fourth launch had failed, SpaceX would be dead in 2008. We had no money for a fifth launch. And for Tesla, Tesla's been on the verge of bankruptcy many, and we closed the financing round in 2008, because remember, at the end of 2008, General Motors and Chrysler were going bankrupt, and Ford was almost bankrupt. So imagine trying to raise money for an electric car startup while General Motors is going bankrupt. People were angry that I even asked, but we were able to just barely raise enough money to squeak by and close the financing round for Tesla on the last hour of the last day that it was possible in Christmas Eve, 2008. And if we had not closed that financing round then, it would have gone bankrupt 2 days after Christmas.
You know what you're talking about.
Yes.
This John Law...
If I go bankrupt, fine, whatever. I don't care.
John Law got famous with the sentence, l'économie c'est moi, the economy is me.
Wait, is this guy French or English?
So,
Scottish, he said.
Yeah, but
turn a phrase in French or something?
He worked in France, and his main language then was France. So, l'économie c'est moi. So the question is, do you see any danger that one day not only big platforms like Google or Facebook could face much more rigid regulation, but that Elon Musk could be regulated because of
regulated
being too big?
What? Actually, as it is, SpaceX and Tesla are regulated very
No,
heavily.
but I mean that there could be a discussion that it's just too much in too many areas.
I have too much power personally or something?
If you build in many sectors that are absolutely crucial to society, very dominant.
See you on Mars, suckers. Just kidding.
That's the option then. Yeah. Okay. So one way to avoid that is to be a good citizen, and you are, and you have your own foundation. Could you tell us a little bit about your projects, what your foundation is going to do in the future, what your priorities are to donate money and to improve the world beyond your business activities?
Yeah, I do want to emphasize that SpaceX and Tesla are fundamentally intended to improve the probability that the future is good. So this will do more, they will do more than anything I do from a charitable standpoint in terms of usefulness to humanity. Tesla is about accelerating sustainable energy. Obviously that's important. SpaceX is about making life multiplanetary and of course providing a global internet through Starlink. These are fundamental goods that the good of those companies will far exceed anything that I do from a charitable standpoint. And I have to say it is very difficult to give away money effectively if you care about the money actually doing good and not merely the perception of doing good.
But do you see any concrete project that you would like to focus on? For example, food supply, starvation as a big topic, or anything else that comes to your mind for your foundation activities?
Like I said, it's a big struggle to give away money effectively. Yeah. If you care about, like I said, if you care about the reality of doing good and not the perception of doing good, then it is very hard to give away money effectively. And I care about the reality. Perception be damned. So there's obviously environmental causes, there's education, especially science and engineering education, pediatric healthcare. Hunger these days is more of a political and logistics problem than it is not having enough food. There's a lot of food. In fact, in the US and many countries, the issue is more obesity than it is hunger. But I always I'm looking for ways to give away money that are effective. What do you think I should do?
What heroes of underrated heroes are the people who are doing a service in hospitals, helping elderly people. And I think they don't have a lobby.
Okay.
So I think to do something for them, because we all need them if we are in trouble.
Sure.
Think about it. If you Google Elon Musk, I think you have 156 million search results.
Really?
76 million Twitter followers. You're definitely one of the most popular people on earth. Is popularity a pleasure or a liability for you?
It makes it difficult to go buy a coffee at the corner store, that's for sure. So it's hard to go around places. I used to be able to just go to the store or walk down the street, and now it's quite difficult to do that.
It reminds me a bit of the former Chancellor of Germany, Helmut Kohl, who once told me, you cannot imagine how terrible it is to go to a restaurant, everybody recognizes you, comes to your table, asks you for an autograph. That's terrible. There is only one thing in life that is worse: if nobody comes to your table anymore.
I suppose so. It's hard for me to go to a restaurant. And if I do, I just try to find a corner table and that's dimly lit or something where I can stay out of the way.
But you cannot turn around. Is there anything that you most urgently want to achieve?
The whole, the pressing items in the short term are completing full self-driving so that we have full self-driving operating at a substantially safer level than humans. Basically, it comes down to solving the problem of real-world AI. That consumes a lot of my mind. And then getting Starship to work, not just to get to orbit, but to achieve full and rapid reusability, which is really the holy grail of rocketry that is necessary for humanity to become a multi-planet species.
Is there anything that you would...
And I think those things might happen this year.
Is there anything that you really would like to achieve, which you think is going to be impossible?
Impossible is a strong word, but...
You don't like that word?
That's just it's a strong word. I approach things from a physics standpoint, and the word impossible is more or less banned in physics. I'm really worried about this birth rate thing. That's been troubling me for many years, because I just don't see it turning around. Every year it's worse. And I drive my friends crazy by...
Perhaps that's a project for your foundation.
Sure.
Okay, you are a multi-talent person. Is there any field of total incompetence?
I'm terrible at dancing.
Although you like techno music so much.
Yeah, but the nice thing about techno is don't have to be able to dance very well. You can just jump around, basically.
Walter Isaacson is planning a biography, and he has written a biography on Einstein, on Steve Jobs, on Franklin, and Leonardo da Vinci. Among the four, with whom would you like to meet and have a glass of wine?
I'd be honored to meet any of them, even for a minute. I think Ben Franklin would be the most fun at dinner.
And who is the one where you would say, I'm closest to him? Would it be Leonardo da Vinci?
I think I'm...
You're a Renaissance
pretty
man.
different from those people, everyone there. It might actually be Ben Franklin, frankly. He did a lot of science and engineering stuff. I don't know, but it's funny, Da Vinci thought of himself first and foremost as an engineer. And in his application, when he applied for his position that enabled him to create a lot of the art, his application was all about his engineering stuff, and then at the end, and also I do some art. It was just funny that Da Vinci really thought of himself as an engineer, and for the time he was pretty impressive.
The German author Thomas Mann once said the purpose of life to be an engineer in the interest of progress of mankind.
Sure.
Is that a good definition for your own ambitions?
Yeah, I think that is a good definition.
Is freedom for you the most important value of a society?
No, I think not being dead is...
What would that do with a society if everybody just cares about that?
No, I'm just saying there's a Maslow's hierarchy of...
Okay.
These days, back in the old days, a good year would be a year where not that many people died of hunger, plague, not that many people froze to death, not that many people were killed by the neighboring tribe. Back in the old days, that if it was like, hey, we only lost 5% last year. That was great. It's now those things are really not concerns anywhere near they would like level of what they would be in the past.
What did COVID
So
do to the freedom in our society?
I think freedom was severely restricted with COVID.
Do you think it's a long-term effect, or do you think we are going back to old norms?
The jury's out on that front.
Are you worried?
Yeah, I think we should roll back government power that was massively increased in the COVID times. I think we're at this point, the tail end of it, or it's no longer a major concern. And so we need to actively roll back the powers of government that were created COVID.
You once said on Mars, if there's human life, there should be direct democracy.
Yes, I think direct democracy is less susceptible to corruption than representative democracy. The other recommendations that I'd say like any laws need to be short enough that everyone can read them. As well, and it should be easier to get rid of a law than make one.
Do you see any positive effects in the COVID pandemic?
I think there are many silver linings. The advancement of synthetic RNA was accelerated significantly because of COVID.
And it's going to help with cancer, allergies,
Yes.
bacterial
Exactly.
diseases. Yeah.
Yes, synthetic RNA is a revolution in medicine that most people are not aware of just how much of a revolution that is. I would say this is like medicine going from analog to digital.
And that could be the big accelerator here during the plague, which also was an accelerator of progress in society and medical progress big times.
Yes, it's actually interesting. English was suppressed in England for quite a long time because William the Conqueror was Norman French. So it wasn't even French. It was like a different version of French.
Yeah.
But that was the official language, and the courts were only in French for hundreds of years in England. If you wanted to go to court, you had to either be able to speak Norman French or hire someone who could. And then actually the plague got so bad that so many lawyers died in the plague that they didn't have enough people who could speak French for the courts. So they said, okay, we have to have the courts in English because there aren't enough people alive who can speak Norman French.
So indirectly, the plague was a trigger of democratization of society.
Yeah, it actually did, for society as a whole, improve things, at least based on my observation of things in England. The people were actually able to speak English in courts because they had no other choice. And a lot of other things were improved. There were a labor shortage because of the plague, and so that put a lot more power in the hands of laborers and gave them more freedom of action.
And I think we have to come to an end, but just a couple of very brief questions. What is your biggest fear?
I think you have to say, what are the existential threats that humanity faces? We spent a lot of time talking about the birth rate thing. That might be the biggest single threat to the future of human civilization. Then there's artificial intelligence gone wrong is a big concern. I think religious extremism is a concern.
What is your biggest hope?
My biggest hope is that humanity creates a self-sustaining city on Mars.
You said that you cannot be and don't want to be alone. I very much share that feeling.
Yeah.
Where does it come from?
I think it's just a natural human. Most people don't.
A lot of people are happy if they are alone.
I really? I think most people are not happy being alone.
Do you feel lonely?
There are times when I feel lonely, yes. But I think it's pretty basic. If I'm, say, working on the Starship rocket down at, South Texas, and I'm just staying in my little house by myself, especially if I forget my dog. If my dog is not with me, then I feel quite lonely because I'm just in a little house by myself with not even a dog.
Last question. You have once said, if I'm not in love, I cannot be happy. Are you happy at the moment?
I think there's degrees of love, but certainly for one to feel fully happy, I think you have to be happy in work and happy in love. I suppose I'm medium happy. There are degrees of happiness.
Can love for projects, for work, compensate love among people?
I think love of work, in my experience, can at best make one halfway happy.
Perhaps that's your biggest hope, to be really in love.
I have been in the past. I try to be as literal as possible. I would be happy if humanity has a self-sustaining city on Mars, because then the probable lifespan of humanity is much greater. And I think we really just got this consciousness, like this little candle of consciousness, like a small light in the void. And we don't want that small candle in a vast darkness to be put out.